And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not. Neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him.
Does our sun have an evil twin? A star named Nemesis orbiting the distant reaches of our solar system? And every 26 million years, does it fling comets from the Oort cloud toward Earth?
Sometimes they get tossed out, other times they orbit harmlessly until they evaporate and go away.
Scientist Richard Muller not only theorizes that this periodic mayhem is caused by a deadly companion star to the sun, he believes he knows precisely what kind of star it is: a red dwarf. An evil twin to the sun named Nemesis. Some scientists suspect that Nemesis is a dark, still undiscovered star orbiting our sun. And every 26 million years, it triggers a disaster.
We know that the solar system is surrounded by this enormous cloud of comets, and so these successive passages of the sun's companion would send comets into the inner solar system. Some of them would hit Earth.
What follows is death on a colossal scale. It is now widely accepted that a rock from space caused the end of the age of dinosaurs 65 million years ago.
So we now are pretty convinced that the reason that a huge fraction of life on the Earth went extinct 65 million years ago was because a comet slammed into the Earth.
The resulting impacts have been the source of many major extinction events in Earth's history. By definition, a red dwarf barely glows at all.
It would be the closest star to our sun, and we wouldn't even know it. Now, why is that? The way we discover nearby stars is either because they're very bright, and a red dwarf star is not very bright, or because the sun is moving past it. This star is moving with us. Yes, it's orbiting us, but that orbit is very slow, 26 million years. So it would be moving with us. It would just be at a fixed position in the sky and wouldn't move.
In other words, when viewed from Earth, most nearby objects are shifting over time. But Nemesis is sitting still. When binary stars are of different sizes, the smaller star, in this case Nemesis, swings in a wide orbit around its larger companion, in this case the Sun, which barely seems to orbit at all. Why does the smaller one move in a much wider circle? The answer has to do with a concept called the center of mass.
Wow, are you guys balanced?
But unlike these gymnasts, Nemesis and the Sun are not equal. Astronomer Richard Muller estimates that the Sun has 10 times more mass than its undiscovered twin. And when one binary star is larger than its sibling, the center of mass between them shifts closer to the larger star. Since Tammy weighs about 4 times as much as the metal weights, she must move far closer to the center of mass to maintain balance. If Tammy and the weights represented binary stars, the weights would orbit far out in the distance, while Tammy would barely move. In fact, both would be orbiting each other.
It's kind of a misconception to think that the more massive star doesn't move and the less massive star just goes around it. In fact, they're still both orbiting the common center of mass.
Although calculations indicate that Nemesis isn't due back for millions of years, something appears to be shaking up the comets in the Oort cloud right now. Could Nemesis already be upon us?
If the sun was all by itself and there was no Nemesis, then the comets in the Oort cloud would all have very predictable and regular orbits. They would be very regular in their arrival times and departure times.
Without gravitational interference from anything other than the sun, Oort cloud comets, like juggled objects, could spread out evenly across the sky. However, that's not what some scientists report.
When we look out into the sky and look at where the comets are coming from, their directions tend to concentrate in a certain region of the sky. And one possible explanation for that is that that skew is being directed by the gravitational perturbations from an unseen object that is out there.
Based on these observations, scientists infer that a huge object is disturbing the Oort cloud.
The solar system probably formed in a cluster of stars, and so close encounters with nearby stars, nearby rogue planets even, were much more common during the very earliest days of the solar system's formation.
Most of these solar brothers and sisters have long since dispersed. But according to the Nemesis hypothesis, one of them is still out there, still circling the sun, still causing periodic chaos amongst the comets, and still waiting to rain death on the Earth once more. If that is correct, future generations will be faced with a monumental threat when Nemesis returns. A dark reddish star has entered the Oort cloud. Nemesis has returned. If humans still exist on Earth, they'll face a slow-building but imminent cosmic threat.
The Oort cloud contains perhaps 10 trillion comets, maybe even more. But remember, it's really big, so if you were in the Oort cloud, it's not like you would be pelted by comets all the time. The spaces between them would be pretty big.
Like a bowling ball in a juggler's hands, Nemesis simply shuffles some comets out of its way.
The Oort cloud has an empty region in the middle. It's been cleaned out by Jupiter and by the sun. We live in that region.
But as Nemesis approaches, the inner solar system becomes a shooting gallery.
And so there start to be a few more comets than usual, and then suddenly there are just comets coming all the time.
And at the peak, there might be 1,000 to 10,000 comets per year in the sky.
Will the impact spark another catastrophic extinction on Earth? Perhaps.
It would be difficult to predict exactly when the impact would happen, but there would be this phase, this sort of danger zone in which the chances for a catastrophic impact with something of a comet size would be much, much higher than they are now.
In this week, on the sky has a new object, weak, faint, reddish dot, until it is observed only by astronomers, but after May 2011, it can be seen with naked eyes, in some places. The dark planet's name is Planet X, a mysterious part of our solar system. NASA has recognized the probability of its existence in 1982.
Planet X will fly around the Earth so close that the consequences for the Earth and for all humans would be catastrophic. Because Planet X is much larger than Earth, the gravitational field of Planet X will be much stronger than the Earth's gravitational field. Devastating effect of the field of Planet X. It is approaching the Earth from 2012. It will change the axis of our planet and shift the poles of our Earth. Global cooling, new ice age, and world floodings will lead to extinction to all species on the Earth's surface. 2/3 of the world population, or almost all, will die.
We are forbidden to talk about the existence of this unknown Planet X or Nibiru. Remember the name of this planet because it is approaching our planet. In 1972, Joseph Brady of University of California discovered that some unknown planet causes gravity gravitational disturbance of the orbit of Halley's Comet. Planet X is 5 times more massive than the Earth. This information was quickly closed down, referring to the error of the research apparatus. Long experienced employees of NASA suppressed or hide the existence of Planet X. All the information about Planet X are severely protected, and not permitted to be publicized. Repeat of a worldwide flooding. The rescue team will only be drowned themselves. Information about Planet X are now concealed. There is no program, not even one documentary film produced by NASA to reveal their research about Planet X. It makes no sense for them to be silent about Planet X, and hide away their researches about such giant red planet rise above the horizon of the Earth. 2012 Planet X was seen by naked eyes all over the world, especially from the directions of the southern hemisphere, Antarctica.
It is a celestial body larger than the size of the Earth and 5 times. The strength of its gravity is so powerful that will even change and tilt the axis of our planet Earth. And it will cause polar shift, causing magnetic shift to the poles. And then our planet would collapse unprecedentedly, and lead to powerful floodings, earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, and tornadoes of unprecedented scale. In 1978, American scientists stated that in our solar system, there are not only 9 planets as officially accepted by worldwide, but in fact, there are 10 planets. Planet X moves in space at an incredibly elongated orbit, and it comes to the Earth approximately every 3,600 years. They are unable to capture Planet X in the outer space. However, in the early 1980s, after lengthy mathematical calculations, and the construction of new computer models, the existence of this giant Planet X has been proven.
In 1982, NASA agreed that there is a large planet, which they named it Planet X or Nibiru.
In 2005, American astrophysicists announced that is approximately from the distance of 1 light year of the Earth, there is a huge cosmic object. A giant planet exists. This giant Planet X is approaching our planet Earth at an enormous speed. Planet X is so very dark that with the optical telescopes and other instruments in 2005 are unable to capture it. The visual records of Planet X were only provided until 2007 by NASA, when the new heavy-duty infrared telescope was launched into the orbit. What the U.S. astronomers see in the photographs made telescope for a long time threw them into a real shock. In the black void of outer space, we clearly see the outlines of a huge planet. Undoubtedly, this is Planet X. They also name it Nibiru.
And in the coming years, this Planet X will fly at a very close distance to our planet Earth, which is gonna be only several hundred kilometers from us. Being so close to our planet Earth, Planet X could easily disrupt the atmosphere of the Earth, causing unprecedented cyclopean tsunamis, earthquakes and a new worldwide deluge. The scientists have also found that Planet X has already destroyed another planet in the past. Many years ago in the solar system, there is a planet named Phaethon existed between Mars and Jupiter. The fragments of Phaethon is now in solar system as asteroid belt. The belt of asteroids is an ancient fragments of the planet Phaethon. Planet X encountered with the Phaethon, as it once again passed through the solar system. After sun a blow of this giant Planet X, the planet Phaethon shattered into pieces. In Slavic Vedas, Phaethon is called like Dea, which means this planet destroyed Draco, reptiles and Unaki. According to US scientists, the government simply conceal the truth from humanity, avoiding causing panic to the world.
Planet X can bring considerable damage and even casualty to all inhabitants on the Earth. Representatives from all intelligence, they have information of Planet X in hand.
And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and unto them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads. And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months. And their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man. And in those days shall men seek death, and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them.
We all know the story of Noah and the flood. So this begs the obvious question. In terms of science, what single causality could yield such a global diversity of deluge stories. For that, we look back to 1940 when a Chilean astronomer by the name of Carlos Ferrada an explanation based on two objects. One he calls the Black Star, and the other an object he called Hercules, or what we know today as Planet X or Nibiru. Hercules is a large comet planet charged with cosmic energy in an elliptical orbit between the two suns of our own solar system, Sol and its smaller, dark twin, Nemesis. A man of great intellect and insight, Ferrada tells us that this object does not follow established celestial laws, which in turn explains its bizarre behaviors. He also predicts that during this next coming flyby, this massive object will come within 14 million kilometers of Earth, and that it will be naked eye visible from every point of the globe. Yes, we will all see it, and we will photograph it. But when will we all come to believe our own eyes? Well, that might be quite another thing. But of even greater concern to us is the black sun, as Ferrada calls it. A binary twin to our own sun that is 56 times the size of Earth. And it is the core object of a mini constellation we call the Planet X system, which in turn orbits around our own sun, much like a comet would. There's a lot of confusion about Nibiru out there, because most people do not understand that Nibiru, also known as Planet X, Hercules, Red Planet, Destroyer, Frightener, and other names, is the outermost orbital of Nemesis. Therefore, Nemesis and Nibiru are part of what we refer to as the Planet X system, a mini constellation in orbit around our own sun, Sol.
There is something else coming, according to many astronomers. And it's been called Planet X. Planet X is not some weird prophecy planet. It is a real planetary body that astronomers have been looking for hundreds of years. If you don't understand the science of it, the way that we find planets that we cannot see in the telescope, especially back in hundreds of years ago when the telescopes were not powerful enough, scientists through pure math would calculate the motions of the planets we do see. And if it moves in an unusual way, it's called a perturbance or a perturbation. And based on the perturbance or the way that it's perturbed, they calculate there must be another body nearby perturbing it. And that's how we found planets like Uranus and Neptune. Now, when they found Neptune, they realized something is perturbing Neptune. And so they found Pluto. But then Pluto has recently been degraded to a dwarf planet. It doesn't qualify as a planet because it's just way too small. It's probably one of the moons of Saturn or Jupiter that got flung out at some point. It's just too small. It's not it doesn't qualify to perturb anybody's orbit. And so scientists have always been looking for a Planet X, the ninth planet or the 10th planet if we had kept the 9 planets, including Pluto. That there is something that has come in the past, and it looks like every time it came, it triggered an event of biblical proportion. And so if you time the events in the Bible, where you got things like the sun standing still at Joshua's war, or Noah's flood, and then the end of Noah's flood, which happens to be 150 days, this thing comes at an elliptical orbit far out from the solar system. It comes into the inner solar system, and from the time that it crosses Earth's orbit and then recrosses Earth's orbit, because it's very elliptical, is 150 days. So it coincides with the major catastrophe of Noah's flood. Now NASA has reported on this back in the 80s, back in the 90s, and then they went silent. Voyager 1, Voyager 2, and then I think some other one, but at least those two, they were sent out exactly where this Planet X is presumed to be. So the conspiracy guys got a lot to work on here, because we're expecting something coming from that direction, and that's exactly where we sent 2 of our space probes into the limits of the solar system. Now, if you spend billions of dollars on space probes, I think you better pick which side of the solar system you're going to send this thing out to? And they sent it towards planet X. So it's a real concern. Is there something coming, or has it already entered our solar system that we know? And this is what's triggering a lot of the changes around the planets, including our earthquakes, sinkholes, and magnetic changes, North Pole moving around a lot. Is this all happening because of planet X? So anyway, you want to know the date that he predicts it's going to come? The next Earth flyby is estimated to be, no one's perfectly sure, but this is the best educated guess. It will come on the 26th of March, 2016. And this is predicted by Gil Broussard. Right? This is the Christian astronomer. And the approach of another planet on an elliptical orbit could be responsible for unpredictable comets and asteroids in a field of debris. And this is now what's happening is we got these comets coming in that were used to be we could predict them 30 years ahead of time. Now they're just coming in and we didn't know they were coming. We've got asteroids that come and we're supposed to have all these satellites out there. We got like 600 satellites flying around Earth. Not one of them picked up the meteor that fell on Russia in Siberia. So it seems like something is getting thrown out and things are being perturbed in our solar system as we speak. So that may be the gravitation of another planet coming in. It could be responsible, as I said, for the major earthquakes, sinkholes. Also, there's a lot of methane gas being released from under the oceans. Maybe this is a disturbance of the crust, and that's what's killing a lot of the sea creatures that are floating up and dying. It's on the news all the time. The scientists also predict that this may account for the 100-pound hailstones that the book of Revelation says is coming. That's one of the signs. It's one of the judgment events in Revelation. Well, we've never seen 100-pound hailstones. Why would it happen? Because if there's a flyby that disturbs Earth's poles, it could actually bring all of the cold weather from the North Pole suddenly down, say to the equator. If you have such a major fast shift in weather, the prediction is you could have the entire layer of atmosphere freeze. Now, if you have a layer of the atmosphere freeze, you don't have rain coming down. You don't even have hailstones coming down. We'll have something we've never seen before. We'll have sheets of solid ice falling on people's heads.
Check out these sheets of ice flying.
Will that make people angry at God and blaspheme God who never paid attention to the signs of Revelation? I think so. How could it happen? A flyby of planet X could possibly do that. And that's according to the scientists.
Whereby the world that then was, being overflowed with water, perished. But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also, and the works that are therein shall be burned up. Looking for and hasting unto the coming of the day of God, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat.
Phaeton is a hypothetical planet. What happened to Phaeton was a catastrophic event that tore the planet apart, sending its fragments flying out into space. These fragments then became the asteroid belt that now exists between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. So, our first Planet X system flyby scenario will be a Phaeton event. Here we see Earth on the opposite side of the Sun, but poor Phaeton is a bone to be chewed as Nibiru and Nemesis close in on it. This, we postulate, was the destructive force that tore poor Phaeton apart. The damage of these meteorites will be substantial and long-lasting because they'll contain something called schrebersite, a deadly combination of iron, nickel, and phosphorus only found in meteoric iron. The iron in the schrebersite is what caused the first plague in the biblical account, namely the turning of the waters to blood. To understand why, simply visit a local brickyard. They'll tell you that in order to make those wonderful red bricks we use to decorate our homes with, they add iron to the mix. This is why the iron in the schrebersite will once again turn our waters to the color of blood. and it will result in a dramatic reduction in potable drinking water for all of us. Meanwhile, the phosphorus in the Schreiber site, plus warmer surface temperatures, such as those we're already seeing these days, will trigger huge blooms of blue-green algae. These algae blooms will generate vast amounts of microcystin, which is highly toxic and can kill plants, animals, and humans. And here in our illustration of the Exodus scenario, we find Earth on the opposite side of the Sun, just as it was during the Phaeton event scenario, with one notable exception. This time, there is no Phaeton. So what we've seen with these first two scenarios is that Earth was fortunate enough to be on the other side of the Sun during this final stage of the Planet X system flyby. So what happens if we are not so lucky the next time? No doubt astronomer Carlos Ferrada saw this as well when he predicted that during this coming flyby, Nibiru will come within 14 million kilometers of the Earth. That Earth is just simply going to be at the wrong place and at the wrong time, and so it will be a real tribulation for humankind. First will come increased seismicity, which is already happening, followed by increased volcanism, which also is already happening. Then there will be the deep impact events that many of our modern astronomers and scientists are warning us about. And then will come the tidal forces of Nibiru and Nemesis as they gain a lithosphere lock on Earth. Then they'll pull the skin of our planet around.
So what causes pole shifts? Our solar system is larger than you know. It is a binary star system. The Sun's twin, Nemesis, is a dark unlit star, which pulls the orbits of the outer planets into the ellipses you see today. Our solar system also contains a 10th planet, Planet X, which orbits both stars, our Sun, Sol, and its twin, Nemesis, approximately every 3,657 years. Planet X passes our Sun and crosses the Earth's orbit. The magnetic fields of our planet Earth clash with Planet X, causing great upheaval on Earth as it adjusts with the pole shift.
Nibiru is much too large to be one of the trumpets of Revelation 8. As a solar system, a star with a solar system, or a planet, if it careened into the Earth as one of the trumpets, it would simply obliterate Earth. The first three trumpets are small enough to strike rivers, streams of water, our ocean, selectively burn trees and grass and 1/3 of the Earth, not to demolish the entire planet. So Ison is not Nibiru, and Nibiru is not Wormwood, or any of the trumpets of Revelation. But could Ison be the fulfillment of not merely the fiery contents of the censer in heaven cast down on the earth just prior to the first trumpet? Could Ison's debris field and the asteroids and meteors Ison has already sent helter-skelter throughout the solar system because of going through the asteroid belt actually be the fulfillment of the first three trumpets? I believe if Ison does not bring their fulfillment, another comet's debris will. I believe just as the actual Greek designation of what is translated as the star is aster, that asteroids, especially from deadly, toxic, gaseous comets, or even some small comets, will likely be the fulfillment of the first three trumpets of Revelation. A hit from an actual comet, with its vile, poisonous gases and chemicals like arsenic and cyanide, cyanogen, and diatonic carbon. These comets spewing gases and gas-spewing asteroids can even change the color of water by their toxicity or an ensuing massive plume of red algae, smothering the water's oxygen and killing all the fish. Such a space body falling to Earth could actually cause the ruin of ships with radioactivity. Worse than that of Fukushima as well, ruining even a third of all the ships on the water. So great will be the contamination.
And all the host of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll, and all their hosts shall fall down, as the leaf falleth off from the vine, and as a falling fig from the fig tree.
God sets us up for a miracle by orchestrating perfect timing. It's up to us to open our eyes and believe. Gil Broussard has made a very bold prediction that Planet X's next flyby will be at Passover 2016. And he's actually calculated all of its orbit and given all these dates. And he's as deeply studied and researched in this area as anybody I know. So I just put that up there, and time will tell if he's right. He bases this on an average orbit of about 320 to 330 years per revolution of Planet X. And he predicts actually very boldly that on the 23rd of March 2016, we will have a close flyby of Planet X. Not far away. So something is coming. There will probably be a scientific explanation for every disaster that will happen in the book of Revelation. But the miracle is in the timing. They will occur in sequence predicted and at the time leading up to the Messiah's second coming. That's the miracle. Romans chapter 5 verse 6 says, "In due time, Christ died for the ungodly." Meaning, it couldn't have been a better time. God could not have picked a better time to send His Son when the world was unified by the Roman roads, by a common language, the Greek language, and the news could spread very fast. At the perfect time and the perfect place, the Messiah came, changed the world, split time in half. There's no one like Jesus. He's not just like Buddha or Muhammad or these other people, Confucius. He is unique. His claims are totally unique and different from everyone else. And God said, in the perfect time, He sent forth His Son and He died. Even when we didn't know we needed to be saved, He took care of our sin problem so that today we can hear that He is the salvation that we need.
And as it was in the days of Noe, so shall it be also in the days of the Son of Man. They did eat, they drank, they married wives, they were given in marriage until the day that Noe entered into the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all.
I heard somebody say this: before science, everything was a miracle. What do you think of that? I believe it displays the absolute arrogance of evolutionary thinking. See, as we look back in time, we actually find that people built roads, aqueducts, architecture that 2,000 years later still stand. Whereas none of our roads, none of our houses can last that long. And yet to assume that when we go back in time, these people were dumber than we were, they were easily fooled, easily tricked, they didn't have the same common sense that we have, you really would have to live with a contradiction if you believe evolution on the one hand, and then look at the evidence of history and civilizations and realize these people are very, very smart and used amazing technology that we still cannot compare to. So I want you to understand this. The Lord gave me this phrase: explaining a miracle does not make it less of a miracle. We can describe how life forms in a womb, but we can't create even a single rose. Life is still a miracle. We may describe how sickness gets healed by our immune system over time, but the miracle is in God's ability to shorten the time. Jesus, when we encounter Him, Jesus speeds up the healing for us. Explaining a miracle does not make it less of a miracle. We can describe how water turns into wine through fermentation over time, but we certainly can't do it at a wedding party, can we? With God, the miracle often lies in His ability to orchestrate perfect timing. You see, in Luke chapter 5, we find a story. A miracle doesn't make it less of a miracle. It's conceivable, given enough time, that we might one day possess the knowledge of how natural forces could part the Red Sea all by itself. And there are lots of people that try to say how it could have done that by itself, by natural forces. Okay, fine. But it doesn't explain away the miracle, because the miracle was in the timing. The Red Sea parted when Moses lifted up his rod. And then the Red Sea fell back into place the moment Pharaoh's army pursued their Jewish ex-slaves. The miracle was in the timing. The miracle wasn't in just the water standing up. Does that make sense? Because if you understand that, that's how God works in our lives. Most of the miracles we're waiting for is about God orchestrating perfect timing in our lives. And it's beyond anyone else's ability to do such things. So it doesn't really matter once you've had a miracle from God. It doesn't matter what the naysayers say. It doesn't matter how many people doubt it, because I know Jesus saved my life. I know He did at the time when I needed Him. I know He showed up at certain times when no one else could have been responsible for what happened. And that's what makes me a believer. Not because I can't explain some of the things He does. Sure, we can explain many things. But you can't orchestrate that kind of timing unless you're God. So now we come to Planet X. Luke chapter 23, verse 44 to 45. Now it was about the 6th hour, and there was darkness over all the earth until the 9th hour. Then the sun was darkened, and the veil of the temple was torn in two. Matthew 27, verse 51. Then behold, the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. Is it a miracle to tear a veil? Of course not. The miracle was it tore from the top to the bottom. Because if a man did it, would have torn it from the bottom to the top. See? It's always these things that people say, I can explain things, but God always has one up on humans. So, when the veil was torn from top to bottom, the earth quaked and the rocks were split. What's interesting about this is, at the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, there was a 3-hour eclipse in our time from noon to 3 p.m., plus an earthquake. Well, how's that possible? Have you ever thought about the fact that God just left us a clue about another planetary body? Why? Because the maximum time that our moon can eclipse the sun is 7 minutes and 31 seconds. Can't do any more than that. How can you have a 3-hour eclipse? Well, it's possible with the flyby of a much larger object, at least 7 times the size of the Earth. In other words, perhaps Planet X. Let's go to another biblical event, Joshua's long day. That the Lord cast down large hailstones from heaven. There were more who died from the hailstones than the children of Israel killed with the sword. So the sun stood still and the moon stopped and did not hasten to go down for about a whole day. That's what? 12 hours. A scientific explanation for the Earth's rotation slowing down is possible. It's possible. The miracle was in the timing. The moment Joshua stood there on the battlefield and said, "Sun, stand still." There are scientific forces that could act on the rotation of the planet. Namely, Planet X crossing the Earth's orbit on Passover in 1400 BC. That could have brought the meteor shower that killed more enemies than Joshua's army and extended daylight by 12 hours. On Joshua's long day, Planet X could have looked 50 times the size of the moon. Could this be what Jesus spoke about in Luke chapter 21 when He said, men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. He clearly is pointing us towards a direction that most of the church and the world are not looking. He says, watch out, something's going to happen astronomically. By the way, Joshua's long day, guess what, was recorded as China's short day. Isn't that amazing? In around 1400 BC. There are records of that. And then again, the Chinese, who have the longest astronomical record of any civilization, reported a guest star in 1054 AD, and that's also the same time when the British recorded, and there's a painting here, of some stellar body with a massive debris tail following it. And there's a drawing of that right there on the right side. Well, let's go to Noah's flood. I think you're going to be very surprised by this. You know, I believe all the fuel that we pump into the cars, it's a reminder of Noah's flood. Millions of dead organic material buried suddenly form fossil fuel. So for all the people who say, I don't believe the Bible, I don't believe it happened, you're pumping it into your car every day. It's amazing, isn't it? In Genesis chapter 7, in the 600th year of Noah's life, this is what people don't know. They thought it just rained for 40 days. It didn't. Number one, it says, God said, all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of heaven were open. It's an interesting phrase. It's not just that it rained. Something broke apart in the heavens, and something broke apart in the earth's crust. And the waters prevailed on the earth 150 days. Gives us a clue to something. And by the way, most things happen not once. Almost nothing in the Bible happens once. So everything that happens here is a prelude to something else. Only in Noah's flood, God promised, never going to flood the whole world in the same way. Yet everything usually happens twice. So these details here, they'll be handy in the end times. 150 days. Because guess what? Book of Revelation also says one of the trumpet judgments will last 5 months. 5 months is 5 times 30 days, 150 days. Jewish calendar days are 30 days a month. Very interesting. There's parallels between Genesis and Revelation all the way through. The Bible is saying the flood was not mere rain for 40 days. It says the canopy of water that was ruptured from above. There was above the atmosphere another layer of water. Remember the firmament separated the waters from the waters in Genesis? There was water above. And that was ruptured, and then it all broke apart and fell down. The earth's crust was also ruptured from below. And 150 days later, the waters receded. Well, how is that possible? Well, if you map out planet X's orbit, it seems that planet X has an orbit that crosses the Earth's orbit twice in a period of 150 days. So you see, point 1 is the sun, point 2 is the first crossing of the Earth, point 3 is the second crossing as it leaves the solar system. So here's a scenario that may explain Noah's flood. Planet X crosses the Earth's orbit, and then each encounter brought debris and meteors upon the Earth. So here's the first flyby. On the second Passover, 3000 BC, remember Passover is the only feast where if you missed it, God gave you grace, you can celebrate it a second month, the month later. Well, Noah recorded that on the second Passover, 3000 BC or 5,000 years ago, the waters broke from above the heavens. Well, a meteor shower would have done that. Meteors would have opened the floodgates of heaven, shattering the upper firmament that divided the waters from the waters. Then, 5 months later, it makes a revolution around the sun, comes back, the earth happens to meet on this occasion the debris of planet X once again as it exits the solar system and the Earth's orbit. And so this is probably what happened. 150 days later, a second flyby of planet X drags a 110-mile wide asteroid into a collision course with Earth. And there's a reason why we have quite an exact figure on the size of this asteroid or this meteor, but we have to say asteroid because it's so big. Here's a moment of impact. A scientist calculated at a trajectory of 22, or an angle of 22 degrees. There's the moment of impact. It would have sent shock waves into the Earth's core and all throughout the Earth. That would have ejected some of the Earth's crust, leaving basins of for water to recede into, which today forms our oceans. Now, science always denies catastrophic events until catastrophic events happen. Did you know that last week an earthquake, 7.7 earthquake in Pakistan, created an island like that? If you don't know, just go on the news and see it. They always say over millions and millions and millions of years, and yet on the news, turn on, boom, an island just got created. In the same way, something suddenly happened and the waters then receded. Something scientific, something explainable had to have happened. A 110-mile diameter meteor or asteroid would have impacted the Earth. Planet X gravitational electric influence would explain the start of Noah's flood. Canopy broke. The end of the flood, a meteor came and then ejected some of the crust, which left basins. It would also explain the tilt of the Earth, without which we wouldn't have seasons. So at the moment of impact, the Earth was pushed 23.5 degrees, which allows for seasons. I always believe in the beginning, there was no rain in the beginning and there were no seasons in the beginning. Why do we have seasons? Because this impact at Noah's flood tilted the Earth. Now we got seasons, winter, summer, and all that. And it would have also cracked the Earth into tectonic plates. Does the Bible talk about this? Yes, it does. Isaiah 24, verse 19 and 20. Behold, the Lord makes the earth empty and makes it waste, distorts its surface. The earth is violently broken. The earth is split open. The earth is shaken exceedingly. The earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard and totter like a hunt. That sounds like the Earth's 23.5 degree tilt. Planet X could provide a scientific explanation for all these things we observe. The Earth's crust is definitely cracked like an eggshell into tectonic plates. What we see on the globe is not exactly the plates. Underneath, they're all cracked. Now, one problem a scientist had with this was that if such a large impact had occurred, the amount of heat that would have been generated would have wiped out all life. That's just the physics of it. And so this person who didn't believe the Bible challenged this other scientist who believes the Bible and says, well, you got a heat problem. It's just impossible that this happened 5,000 years ago. He says, well, how about this? What if the entire surface of the planet was covered in water? Isn't water a perfect conductor of heat? Would have absorbed all the heat. In fact, I saw on the news today, global warming scientists, because they're having a real hard time now explaining global warming. They're saying, oh, well, the ocean is such a good conductor of heat. Global warming is happening. We are responsible, but the oceans have absorbed all the heat. The miracle was the perfect timing. He says, get in the ark. The meteor shower came. Planet X could have passed by. Maybe that's the gravitational force that pushed all these meteors in Noah's way. He got in the ark. He was safe. Then it came. Then the big meteor that helped the waters to recede came at the moment where the entire earth was covered with water, absorbing most of the shock, most of the heat. Amazing? God is amazing. His miracles usually involve perfect timing. Now, the question remains, is there any evidence of such an impact? Well, I'm going to show you something that you will never forget. Most truths are staring at us in the face. It's right in front of our eyes, but we don't know it's there until somebody points it out to us. So I'm going to point it out to you, the evidence of this impact. It's called the Gulf of Mexico. This is a perfect circular crater left by an impact of an asteroid. Does that look like a perfect circle to you? Pretty much for geography. Compare that to the Arizona crater, which is 0.7 mile wide. The Gulf of Mexico's crater is 1,100 miles wide, and we usually calculate that a meteor is 10% the size of the impact crater. That's why we have quite a good idea of how big this thing was that came at the end of Noah's flood, or as the waters receded. What's interesting is if we take pictures subterranean, sub-ocean pictures, we also can see there's a visible landslide under the ocean. Can you see that? At the top of the circle, the land slid into the ocean in the distant past. If this has happened before, this area from Houston to Louisiana to New Orleans is a high-risk area for collapse a second time if there was another Planet X pass by. So Houston to New Orleans could be unstable. Also, you know that oil and gas are found in abundance in this area because plant life was buried suddenly by a previous landslide. So 70 to 80% of America's domestic oil and gas flows through the pipelines of this high-risk zone. Now, the shock waves were sent around the world. Is there any evidence of that? Sure there is. It caused an uplift on the other side of the planet. It's called the Himalayan mountain range. Take a look at it. It's a perfect curve. It's the same curve as the Gulf of Mexico sent to the other side. In other words, Himalayans were formed in a matter of seconds. Number two, it also means the highest peaks of the Himalayas did not exist at the time of Noah's flood. So a lot of people like to argue and say, well, how much would it have to rain to reach all the way to the top of Mount Everest? Well, excuse me, there was no Mount Everest. Amazing. God has an answer to everything. And it's right there. It's staring you in the face. Next time you look at the globe, it's all there. But I'll take you even further. This is a NASA satellite map of gravity. Did you know that gravity is unevenly distributed on the Earth? You are slightly heavier in Asia. That's why we have to eat rice and not pasta. You're slightly heavier in Asia because the land density is greater. Well, what could have caused that? It indicates pressure wave. Powerful meteor impacting during a total global flood is a logical explanation for this anomaly on our planet. Let's talk about future implications, because that's the part everyone wants to know. What does this matter to me? Revelation is a timeline. Revelation indicates that worse things will happen during the 7-year tribulation. I think that's pretty scary, don't you think? So we don't want to be there for that. We want to believe Jesus now. We want to accept the Savior now. He's giving us warning through all of this prophecy and science. You don't want to be here for this.
And the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne, saying, "It is done." And there were voices, and thunders, and lightnings. And there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth. So mighty an earthquake and so great. And the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon came in remembrance before God, to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. And every island fled away, and the mountains were not found.
Alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city! For in 1 hour is thy judgment come.
And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone, and cast it into the sea, saying,
Thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all.
Well, could Planet X be the explanation for these events, these judgments in the book of Revelation? And if so, when is Planet X, or Nibiru is another name for it, when is it coming back? All right, you remember that I told you the 7 seals, or 7 pre-tribulation seals? There are the 7 trumpets from chapter 7 to 10, and then the 7 bowl judgments from chapter 16 to 19. These are all timelines. 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 bowls are just word pictures for judgments. That's 21 judgments in total. In other words, 21 events in sequential order. Well, we know something is coming. That's what the book of Revelation is saying for sure. I'm going to give you just 2 of the events. The 6th seal, I believe we're waiting for it, or we're in the midst of it. Revelation 6 verse 13, and the stars of heaven fell to the earth. What are meteors called? Falling stars. The stars of heaven falling to the earth are meteors. As a fig tree drops its late figs when it is shaken by a mighty wind, then the sky receded as a scroll when it is rolled up. And then the church age ends. Tribulation begins on the 7th trumpet. I believe rapture happens on the 7th seal. So in other words, the church age closes with a meteor shower. But not a bad one. This is the revelation God gave me. You can take it or leave it. But in all the other places during tribulation, he says when there's a meteor shower, hailstones fell on top of them. But at the close of the church age, we'll see something, and he calls it, that's like figs dropping. Well, question, would you rather have a fig drop on your head, or would you rather have a stone drop on your head? Yeah, I'll take figs anytime. What do the figs mean? I think God is saying, you're going to see it, it's not going to hurt. Well, guess what? The scientists have just found this week a meteor shower, unprecedented meteor shower is due, and they've already put a date on it next year. And it's all in line with the tetrad, the solar eclipses, lunar eclipses, all the stuff that we've been talking about. So now we come to Planet X. The tribulation starts, Revelation 8 verse 7, and hail and fire followed, mingled with blood, and they were thrown down to the earth, and 1/3 of the trees were burned up, and all green grass was burned up. In other words, tribulation starts with a massive meteor shower, and this one hurts. This one, 1/3 of everything gets destroyed. 1/3. God says 1/3 is destroyed. In other words, 2/3 escapes unharmed. Well, take a look at the globe. Asia, Africa, and Europe make up 2/3 of the landmass of the planet. North and South America make up 1/3 of the landmass and also 1/3 of the oceans. Scientists will make an erroneous calculation because they have no model for a 12-hour rotational delay. In other words, when this thing starts coming close, scientists will say, this is the safe side. America will be safe. But God had recorded in the book of Joshua that one of the times when Planet X passed by, it actually caused the rotation to slow down by 12 hours. Unless you're a Christian, you have no concept of that. Unless you believe in the electric universe, you won't even suspect that could happen. There's no model for that. And so what I believe will happen is as the meteors come, just like the Bible says, instead of repenting and saying, God is right, I want to believe the Bible now before I get killed, they say, science will take care of this. We're so smart. We've already predicted where it's going to land. It's going to land in Asia, Europe, the Middle East, Africa. And I believe people will buy tickets and get on airplanes to go over to the Americas and not realize they're going to their doom. And they will die there. And that's why in the book of Revelation it says, when Babylon goes up in smoke, everybody cries. Why? Because they didn't expect it. They thought, no, America's going to escape. The rest are going to get hit. Then suddenly, within 12 hours, the whole picture changes. You can't leave the continent fast enough. And then everybody starts wailing and crying, "Oh, Babylon, Babylon, how great you were." We didn't expect it. Now all the events will line up, all the events will become relevant to understanding the book of Revelations. In Hosea chapter 4 verse 6, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." I believe even Christians will end up, instead of trusting the Bible, they will trust their astronomers, their scientists, their government, saying everything's going to be okay. And I'm telling the American watchers, trust the Bible, believe the Bible.
Babylon the Great is fallen. Is fallen and is become the habitation of devils.
Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. For in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught.
If you're a pastor listening to this right now, it's time for you to preach Bible prophecy or invite a guest speaker on the subject. We cannot censor a third of the Bible and feed our sheep properly. Bible prophecy is a third of the Bible. Very important that we make sure that Christians are equipped with the right, accurate biblical knowledge. It might actually save their life when the time comes. If you are a pre-Christian, you don't yet know Jesus as your own personal Lord and Savior, you might have been to church before, I'm not talking about that. If you're a pre-Christian, you're not born again, it's time for you to receive your miracle. You have to do two things: repent of your sins before it's too late, and call on Jesus to save you. He says, just call. I mean, literally, like if you saw a meteor about to fall on your house, all you have to do is say, "Jesus!" And he's make sure you get into a good church and start reading the Bible and sharing your faith with others. But I think right now, God's got his finger on this subject. People are talking about Revelation, singing Revelation, teaching Revelation, and I hope that you're not going to miss out and not understand what God has written in the final book. You know, you don't go to a movie and walk out in the last 10 minutes, do you? No. So you want to find out what happens at the end. It's exciting. If you believe in Jesus, you don't have to be scared. Amen. He is our protector. He's our Savior. We must be about our Father's business. Helping people, healing people, saving people, preaching the good news to them. We don't have bad news to share. We have good news to share. Amen?